You're listening to I Have Some Notes, a podcast supported by listeners like you. To contribute, visit patreon.com/I Have Some Notes.
Hey Greg, I have a pitch for an action movie set on a train starring Brad Pitt.
Awesome. Tell me more.
Sure, I have the whole thing written out somewhere. Where'd my pitch go? I just had it in my pocket.
I have the pitch for the train-based Brad Pitt action romp you're looking for. I snagged it earlier. It's right here in my briefcase. Wait. No, the briefcase, it's empty. Who has the pitch?
You fools! I've had the Pitt train flick pitch all along. Now, if you'll excuse me, this is my...
Stop. Just stop. Look, if we're going to have nonsense change hands for 2 hours, then I have some notes. Welcome to I Have Some Notes, the movie podcast with cuts, keeps, punch-ups, and tweaks on mediocre movies. I'm your host, Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
And I'm Greg Beaver.
And today we are discussing Bullet Train. Choo choo. Bullet Train.
Did they go choo-choo?
In my head canon, yes, there was a choo-choo sound the whole time. But obviously it's a Japanese bullet train, probably runs on solar panels. Speaking of running on things, right off the top, we need to thank our new Patreons. We launched a Patreon recently, and we got to recognize the people who have come to support us. So thank you to our new patrons, Robin of Cinematological, Sharon, Amanda, and Josh. Thank you to everyone who has hit us up on Patreon, and I encourage you, listener, if you have not, please visit our Patreon, support us. It's how we're going to continue to produce this show after our dear, dear friend, the Alberta Podcast Network, has closed its doors. But when a door closes, a window opens or something like that, and we've also opened up a Discord, so I hope you will join us, patron or not, over on our Discord server where we're talking movies, we're swapping notes. The link to that is on the link tree on all of our social medias. But that's the business off the top out of the way. How you guys doing on this Bullet Train day?
It's hot.
Yeah.
It's unseasonably hot. Mm-hmm. I know everybody tunes into I Have Some Notes to hear us talk about the weather, but...
The weather on the day we recorded?
Yeah. But, I mean, it's early May, and it's already feeling like mid-August. And... I mean, that bodes well, especially when we've had no rain and wildfires are raging out of control.
Yeah. No, it's a good time to be on Earth.
Super good.
Speaking of being on Earth, I got to ask right off the top, have you guys ever taken a train? Like, what is our collective experience riding trains?
I have taken the local mass transit train. I have taken the train at Fort Edmonton Park that goes around the park.
I have choo-choo.
I have taken the trolley across the high-level bridge. But as for like a real, actual, honest-to-God train trip, no, I have not. Though I would love to. I think it would be wonderful.
I have taken the VO Rail train into British Columbia on 2 separate occasions. Once to Kamloops, once to Vancouver. The ride from Edmonton to Vancouver on the VO Rail train is truly one of the most breathtaking and exciting experiences. We woke up in deep in the mountains and like sunlight creeping in. It was truly really wonderful. However, I must say the ride from Vancouver back to Edmonton sucked because if you don't know, Via Rail shares their rails with like other freight rail people, Rail CN probably. And they have to like get out of the way. And so there's a whole bunch of like side train tracks that passenger cars basically have to like pull over, wait for the business trains to go by and then pull back in and keep on the journey. And so the ride back from Vancouver to Edmonton, we were stuck in Hinton for like 2 hours just like looking at the Hinton landscape, it almost doubled the length of the trip. We were there for like 2 or 3 hours. I know it's not double, but it was a pain in the ass, and the car started to smell because people have been in there for like hours at a time. It was a real drag. So I honestly don't think I will ever take a Via Rail train again.
I've
Greg?
heard. Oh, sorry. I've heard that traveling via train across Europe is quite lovely.
Oh, gotta believe that.
Yeah, it is. I took a trip by myself to Europe in around 2007, and had a Eurail pass and rode many trains down through up into Scotland, and actually no, I busted into Scotland. It was in France, down to Italy, and in Greece, and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, got to see a lot of cool trains. But bearing the lead a little bit, I've also been on a bullet train in Japan, much like featured in this movie. I've also been on a kind of old rustic tourist train near Mount Fuji that winds itself through mountain foliage, and it's the most gorgeous like ride that I've ever had on anything ever. It's like living through a Ghibli movie. It was just amazing. So if you get to Japan, if you ever get to Japan, I highly, highly recommend that.
Sweet. Yeah, because it's definitely got me thinking about trains. Really, the two things you know about this movie, Bullet Train, going into it, just at looking at the posters, any of the marketing, it's set on a train and it stars Brad Pitt. We've discussed some of the metatextuality of trains. Any thoughts on the metatextuality of Brad Pitt?
Well, so like, I don't know what your experiences was watching this movie, but like I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm really digging it. It's a romp. There's there's fun, quirky characters and interesting mystery and how it's all connected, and some decent fight choreography. And it gets like about halfway through, and I'm thinking, how the hell is this only 54% on Rotten Tomatoes amongst critics? Then I look over at my wife, Erin, and she is not having it at all. And suddenly it starts to make a little bit of sense. So for those of you who don't know, last year it was reported that Brad Pitt was credibly accused of domestic abuse. It's not something I'll go into detail, but suffice it to say that the reports are serious and extremely disgusting. So considering that Brad Pitt's character, he's like this reluctantly violent criminal whose comedic bit is babbling but calming Zen philosophy, it really just like really butts up against like the actor's off-screen issues. Mm-hmm. And like everybody, how how problematic artists are handled can vary wildly from person to person and situation to situation. And it's like a deeply personal thing. And I personally try not to judge anyone for how and when they choose to enjoy media under less than ideal circumstances. But if that's the reason why so many critics couldn't stomach this movie, like I totally get that. Like,
yeah, I think that's valid.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you're either going to be able to move past it or you're not. And for Aaron, just was not able to at all.
Interesting. Yeah. That the whole concept of separating the art from the artist is a tricky one. I guess in this case, I found I was really able to do it quite easily because I had no idea that Brad Pitt was in such trouble. I heard about Johnny Depp, all the other creeps and stuff, but I until more or less today, I somehow was completely ignorant of this situation. And I feel like it might have colored how I watched this film as well. But I truly don't know how this like news slipped past me, but I had no idea.
I think it was always kind of like a little under the radar. And then who knows, maybe it's because Johnny Depp's thing was, so prominent in the news over the last year that maybe it just buried some other things.
Well, not only that, with Johnny Depp, he is a lot more, and this is not a commentary on Brad Pitt's career. He's been a lot more visible over the last few years. He's been in a lot of much larger franchise projects and the like. So when that news broke, he was more in the cultural zeitgeist than Brad Pitt is, because Brad Pitt's like, he's a big movie star, but he's also been like in the background for a bit. He hasn't had like a big thing. He hasn't been in like a Marvel movie or in the case of Johnny Depp, like a major Wizard franchise. So like, I can see why that kind of was a little in the background, whereas Johnny Depp's was kind of up in everyone's face. So
yeah, that's fair. So so I'm glad we covered that. So, and obviously I generally think we're all pretty positive about Bullet Train as a movie. But if you have any icky feelings about watching a Brad Pitt movie, you're probably okay to skip this one. You're not missing much, but also it was a great movie and I really liked it. But also you're not missing much. You can totally skip it and you will not, you're not missing out.
I wouldn't call it like a must watch or anything like that, but generally a very well made movie with a lot of nice setups and payoffs and, again, like a lot of, fun performances from everyone involved. And it was just baffling to me why it was so low on Rotten Tomatoes. And I saw like a lot of people who maybe didn't know Brad Pitt's history who were also down on it, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But it's just not, for some reason it's divisive, and to me it feels like it shouldn't be, aside from the bad stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah. Of course, Bullet Train came out in 2022, directed by David Leitch, written by Zach Olkiewicz, based on the novel by Kotaro Isaka, of the same name.
Actually, it was originally called Maria Beetle, but when it was translated into Bullet Train. The English version is called Bullet Train, though. So,
dig it. The cast, of course, Brad Pitt as Ladybug, Joey King as Prince, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Tangerine. I almost said Anya Taylor-Joy.
She's been in a lot of our episodes lately. So.
Yeah. ATJ, also BTH, Brian Tyree Henry, Andrew Koji, Hiroyuki Sanada as the Elder, Michael Shannon as White Death, and Sandra Bullock shows up at the end also. I
mean, she's there as a voice for most of the movie.
She's the voice,
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a fun one. This I had a good time watching this. So did Amanda. Perhaps because we are ignorant of.
Yeah, we sat down to watch the movie, and for the first 20 minutes, Nita and I were kind of staring at the screen, having this story begin to wash over us. And at one point, Nita looked at me from the couch, and she was like, "Have I lost the plot? Like, did I miss something?" And I'm like, "Nope, you have not." And then, like 30 minutes in, it all kind of like clicked, and Anita looked back at me and said, "Oh no, I think I'm really liking this movie."
We had a few Twitter commenters and just people chatting in our Discord about how they like got 30 minutes in and had to quit. And it really does kind of like, it's a little cringy and uneasy and weird and like a little too poppy and stylish and thinks it's very cool. But once it gets going, you're like, okay, actually this is pretty, I see what you guys are doing here and it's pretty fun.
It's like a titular bullet train. It eases out of the station and then it picks up speed.
Yeah. I honestly, within the first 5 minutes, I thought I was in trouble because there's a very serious scene that leads off the movie, and then it kind of just like hard cuts into some boisterous needle drop. I forget what it was exactly. It was like a 70s tune.
I believe it is actually a Japanese cover of Stayin' Alive or anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to do
that's good. Yeah, I mean it was just like, it was kind of like a little bit of a tonal warp all of a sudden, and I like, it just didn't feel like it fit, so I was like, but it recovered very quickly after that, and I didn't really have a lot of problems up until about the climax when things get a little cartoony. And that's where things may have dropped off a little bit for me, but overall I was having a pretty good time, and I was enjoying the various twists and turns.
You can definitely see the manga and anime inspiration in this story. by about halfway through it. It really starts to wear it on its sleeve. And it's like, okay, we're watching a live action like manga comic right now. And when I made that switch in my brain, the rest of the movie was very enjoyable. And in retrospect, it also made the stuff that I had seen before also make sense at that point, where I was like, okay, I get what the intro was about now.
Yeah. Yeah, it has that like very frenetic style, very over the top, like poses and pauses, and yeah. Let's hit the plot summary because I want to get deeper into what makes this thing tick, makes the trains run on time.
Talk to me.
I am ready. You are getting the new and improved me. Because if you put peace out in the world, you get peace back.
I think you might be forgetting what you do for a living. Take the gun.
Every job I do, somebody dies. I'm not that guy anymore.
Some conflicts require a gun.
Okay, what am I snatching and or grabbing?
A briefcase. You said you wanted simple for your first job back. Doesn't get simpler.
You stab me? I will ruin your life the way you ruin mine.
Dude, I don't even know you!
There's nothing simple about this job.
Something else going on here.
Yeah, I'm not the only one on this train looking for this case.
Evan, where's the briefcase?
Oh, it's that shit. It was just there.
We are right on schedule.
Everything that's ever happened to you
This is gonna sting, bitch!
has led you here. Fate.
Are you a pair of bickering twin assassins on the job protecting a Russian mobster's money and his wayward son? Climb aboard the bullet train. Are you a laid-back thief with no manner of luck looking for an easy score? The bullet train might just be your jam. Maybe you're a deadbeat father on a mission of vengeance seeking a malicious perpetrator of child violence. The bullet train is your port of call. Of course, you could be the perpetrator of said child violence, setting an elaborate mousetrap for your mobster father, in which case the bullet train is definitely for you. Ah, hell, you could be the big bad Russian himself. Where's the place to be? Right here on the bullet train.
Yeah.
A lot going on in this movie.
There's so much going on, and the revelation I had after watching it, some YouTube video I was watching recently made the distinction between the plot of a movie and what it's about.
Ah, yes,
right?
You've been watching some Patrick H. Willems.
Patrick Willems. As I said, it came out of my mouth. I was like, oh, that's where I heard it from. But it was mostly just rattling around in my head. This idea of like the plot of a movie versus like what are the themes, what are the ideas. And this movie, for better or for worse, and I mostly think for better, but goes 100% in on plot and is about very little, if anything. But it is jam-packed with plot points, characters, details about those characters, plot moving forward. It is 100% plot. It's almost like the opposite of Tar.
Which is just a movie about tone, really, yeah.
Which is just about, like, there's not a lot of things happen, but it's about so much. So this is the Bizarro Tar, where it is only plot, no themes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to reduce it to its its very much finer points, it's mostly about family and family relationships, right? Whether it's the twins who are teased as not twins, but then turned out to be twins, whether it's the relationship between Prince and the White Death, or the relationship between Kimura and the Elder, all that stuff, right? Like and of course the Kimura and his son. So there's lots and lots of stuff, familiar stuff going on.
Yes,
yeah,
but it's like, it's not, you don't really get an insight about family the way, hell, Fast and the Furious has more to say about what it means to be a family than this does. It's all just together. Because they talk a lot about fate and luck and
right?
good luck and
Yeah.
bad luck as well.
Yeah.
But like, I truly think that is just to hold together what this movie's setting out to do, which is have a bunch of details interwoven, interlocking, moving in and out of each other in a clever way, motivations, MacGuffins. It really reminded me of like one of those pictures, those illustrations where it's like a big illustration with lots of little details and it's all interacting with each other in different ways. Like you'd see it in like a Mad magazine or just like a really slick piece of commissioned magazine art. Or like a really detailed like GIF. You know what I'm talking about? Like just, yeah, where like each little detail in the picture is interacting with some other detail and your eyes get like almost like Where's Waldo? Like you get to spend a lot of time looking at all the ways the little pieces click together. And that's it. It's just kind of showing off this narrative trick of weaving together so much plot.
Yeah, this movie has a lot of moving parts that do all dovetail together because it starts out as a seeming mishmash of different intersecting agendas and plots, and you're like, how can this all possibly make sense together? And by the end, you're like, oh, it actually all makes sense together. Like it comes together in a very satisfying way. Apparently, it's also very true to the novel. And the author of the novel actually quite liked the result of the movie, apparently. He gave it a big thumbs up. The novel itself, all the characters are Japanese, and he was A-okay with them kind of westernizing the plot a bit and making it a more diverse cast. But other than that, like plot point-wise, the movie's very close to the book with a few major changes here and there. And he was like, it's a good adaptation. So,
yeah, I mean, I like, watching a movie where I'm confident that everything that they're setting up is going to be paid off in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you get about halfway through, you're getting a bunch of reveals and things like that. You sort of get into this mindset like, yes, they know what they're doing. This is going to come around towards the end.
Yeah, they set up a lot of dominoes at the beginning of this movie, which is why I think a lot of people check out in that first 20, 30 minutes because they're still setting up dominoes. And then the first domino falls and it all starts coming together. It's really well structured.
Yeah. An elaborate domino is another good analogy for this, where it's again not about anything, but it's going to look real slick and be fun to watch. Yeah, the setups, the payoffs, and raising the stakes. I love how just every opportunity the stakes got raised in such a fun and entertaining way. The snake, I bought the snake. Mm-hmm. I bought the sleeping powder. Like it just, yeah.
Yeah. Because of course Ladybug has famously bad luck. And so every time he interjects himself into someone else's plot, it results in that plot going off the rails. He's the metaphorical spanner in the works the whole time. He's not even, he's Dante from Clerks. He's not even supposed to be there today. Like
that's a big fun reveal as well. That was, yeah. That he and not because Ryan Reynolds showed up, just the fact that you're like, oh, he literally this was all an elaborate plan. Everything was supposed to be where it was supposed to be. And a different guy showed up. And that's why it all goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoy how often my expectations were subverted. Like you figure that the son of the mobster is going to factor into the movie pretty heavily throughout, and he's dead within minutes. Like you get this long, cool reveal of the Mexican assassin going into his life's history and how he met his wife and what happened at their wedding and stuff like that, and then he also immediately dies. And it's just like it just kept playing with my expectations over and over again. That was definitely keeping me entertained.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. Did they do it 3 times where they give you an elaborate backstory of a character just to watch them die immediately? Did they do it twice?
Sort of with Zazie Beetz, I guess, right? She doesn't get a backstory, but she's teased a bunch of times as the poisoner. Mm-hmm. And then she doesn't last very long once she shows up on the train. Although I guess she's been on the train the entire time because she's the person in the costume.
The 2 I'm saying is the Mexican guy and then the lady in the costume. Is there a third fabulous assassin who gets teed up and then killed immediately.
Nope. Those are the only two.
I'm going to put a fix in here in the first half. Rule of 3. Comedy comes in threes.
Well,
I was waiting for that to happen a third time.
There's a missing assassin from the book that you could slide in.
There you go. Okay.
Because in the book, the Hornet isn't a solo assassin. The Hornet is actually a duo. And the other person who's the Hornet is the train conductor, played by Hero from Heroes, who's in the movie, but then there's no reveal that he's also the Hornet. So you could have had him also be there the whole time and then have a reveal and then also quickly get off.
I wonder if that's something that got cut for time, because
it's possible.
They do spend some time setting up a relationship between him and Ladybug. That
never pays off.
He's out to get him, and that's one thing that doesn't really pay off in the movie.
I disagree that it doesn't pay off. I liked it as this extra tangent. There's all these interweaving stories, and then he's every time he bumps into the conductor, it's this weird petty squabble. In and amongst all, like, the stakes are so high. There's a snake running around, the train's going fast, and then also if he sees the conductor, it's going to be awkward. Was just a fun extra, like, side silly stake. So I disagree that it didn't pay off.
There's this super low stake conflict going on amidst this life or death struggle.
Yeah, I love that detail. So.
It was a very funny thing to keep in, even if they didn't keep that he was also one of the assassins. Yes. Anything
that didn't work for you? I guess.
Well, obviously, Brad Pitt didn't work for Aaron.
No, and honestly, like, in some ways, he didn't work for me. Just like separating the art from the artist, just the character himself, with his sort of like brainless mumbling about, sort of Zen philosophy. And so, like, I don't know, like, I think it felt like the movie thought that was funnier than it was. It didn't bug me, but it also didn't I didn't feel the same way about Brad Pitt's character on screen as I did as everyone else. I was quite enjoying everyone else more than what Brad Pitt was doing and what he was being given.
Fair enough. That could be partly because Brad Pitt's delivery was very like laid back and low energy compared to a lot of the other characters who are very keyed up.
Mm-hmm. And that's fine. Like, that's good contrast to have. And it serves the type of sort of reluctantly violent kind of character that he is. It's just like, I don't know. I just think, there was something about, the way that he kept going, kept talking to people about trying to be like calm and whatever, just wasn't working for me.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, and I think Scott nailed it when he's playing it fairly straight. His funny material isn't that funny, and his non-funny material is played pretty straight and muted in and amongst all of these heightened characters with big personalities, big colors, big traits that are also being played very big and broad. Like, the actors are really making big choices. And then, so the fact that he's kind of playing it down here and he's Brad Pitt, where other than maybe, they're not nobodies, but like, he doesn't get lost in the role. All the other people, you only see the character, whereas Brad Pitt, you see Brad Pitt, and you're just like,
kinda.
It just kind of sticks out, and it doesn't really jive. It was distracting is how I described it. I found his presence distracting from the overall manga style, really heightened, silly manga style that this was going for.
Yeah. I know we don't usually do this, but like, who would you replace Brad Pitt
we're getting
with?
into my fixes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe let's go to fixes now, because my fixes are no Brad Pitt. This movie works.
Okay, well, right before we do that, I just want to talk about the ending a little bit, because it is one of the major things for me that actually did not work. Now I realize that it's called Bullet Train, and at some point the train's got to crash, but like, I don't know, like, it got a little bit too cartoony, and Scott was talking about how it had this real manga feel to it. It kind of like got away from that too and started to feel like sloppy CGI blockbuster a little bit. And I was a little less happy with with the big, climax a little bit.
Yeah, you don't say this often, but the movie takes it downhill when Michael Shannon shows up.
Yeah.
Rarely will we say that about Michael Shannon, but yeah.
I don't mind Michael Shannon showing up. I don't mind the train crash. I feel like the plot is careening out of control at that point in an interesting way, in a way that the train is actually physically careening out of control at that point. And I kind of liked that, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. I didn't mind the way it came together, even if it was a little cartoony in the end. Because at that point, I'd already bought into it being a bit of a cartoony movie. So,
yeah, it seemed like the stakes. There was such a fun specificity of stake escalation that having this big fight between two old guys who are longtime rivals and crime boss masters and martial arts masters, it one step too far.
I disagree, because the whole story is building up to the White Death. He needs to be on stage in the final act because it's all been set in motion from the beginning, right? So
I guess I don't disagree, but I guess when we get to that point, it starts to feel the movie starts having less of a capable grip on it. Like how Greg was saying, the whole time you're watching it, I'm confident the setups and the payoffs are going to work. I'm confident the people making this know what they're doing. And you start to see them, the collective filmmaking process start to sweat a little bit in the final act. Some of the plates, that plate almost fell in your plate spinning act there, pal. David Leitch and Brad Pitt. That's how I describe the climax. Is it's like, woo, you guys almost good save. You didn't stick the landing.
It reminds me of something someone was once mentioning about that new Hobbit trilogy. There's a scene in that movie where I think it's during the goblin scene in the mountains where the hobbits fall all the way down the mountain through these caves and stuff like that, and they're just they're falling 40 feet, 50 feet, and they just keep getting up and they're okay and it's fine. And the effect of that is the tension starts to melt away because it doesn't feel it feels like they're invincible. And in some ways, the climax for me undermines what most of the movie had been setting up, which is that death is very real and very easy. A lot of characters die in very simple, straightforward ways. And then we get this train crash where the train cars are flip-flopping everywhere and everyone's flying through the sky and stuff like that, and every single person somehow manages to walk away from that crash even though they may die after the crash
because Ladybug saved them with his luck. Because he is very unlucky. He is unlucky enough that he crashes the train, but as the elders set up earlier in the movie, his bad luck gives everyone else good luck. So they all miraculously survive the train crash. The train crash doesn't even kill anyone in the village it crashes into. It all is just superficial damage. And that is because of how unlucky he is in comparison to everyone else getting lucky. It is set up. It's set up and it pays off.
Yeah.
It is very cartoony. I will grant that.
Yeah. I think what I was trying to stumble around with my thing about, you guys didn't have a handle on it. Ooh, you're starting to sweat. Greg said it more eloquently with the tension. The tension's just not there, in the way that it was earlier on.
Yeah. I think there was probably a way of simplifying that crash a little bit to give that sort of ironic luck thing that Scott was talking about, but not also sort of completely altering the sort of rules of death around that the movie had been spending the entire time setting up.
Maybe dial the crash back to a 7.
Yeah.
Instead of having it be a 9.5.
Yeah. This looked like a Marvel crash. It didn't need to look like that. I mean, imagine that crash if it was a practical model, and it just ran off the rails and just skidded across that town. That would be so cool.
Funny you should mention practical models. Two interesting notes. Number one, this movie, part of the filming was during the pandemic. And so it was hard for them to find stunt people who could make it to set. They ended up having to do a lot of their own stunts while they were doing like fight choreography and stuff. So in a lot of cases, it's the actual cast doing like the fight choreography. And the fights look great in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, especially considering we just came off of Elysium at the time that we're recording this. And Elysium has all these really janky, really like quickly edited,
Paul Greengrass
weirdly
style.
paced, weirdly paced fight scenes, which were hard to follow. And in these fight scenes were the exact opposite. They were given time to breathe. It wasn't like a bunch of quick choppy edits. You could actually see people trading blows like in the frame. It was really well done. The second thing is that somebody pointed out that it looks like the movie takes place over a whole night. The funny thing is that actual train trip takes about 2.5 hours, and that's the length of the movie.
Yeah, it does.
The sun coming up kind of threw me, but I'm like, creative license. It gives it that cyclical beginning, middle, end. So yeah.
Yeah, if it took like a day, would the train have been basically able to circle Japan? It's not that big of a country.
Yeah.
And it's going so fast. Speaking of going fast, let's quickly go into the second half where we will fix up what little needs to be fixed up on Bullet Train.
In the warring mega towers of a cyberpunk dystopia, bored teenagers use their modified hoverboards to sneak into other dimensions. It's dangerous. It's stupid. It's completely outlawed by the giant corporations that own the entire world. And it's the coolest thing ever. This is Slug Blaster.
Brinley is going to use her beam like a grappling hook.
Scampican, foam jet right to the center of the disc.
A bunch of lightning just sort of crackles around him.
This is our chance to put our crew on the map.
It pleases me to know that I have done well.
At the last possible moment, you fire. Quantum Kickflip, a Slug Blaster actual play podcast. Listen to new episodes every other Wednesday.
Welcome back. We are talking Bullet Train, and Greg, you posited the question, who would we replace? And Scott, that sounds like your fix is based on replacing the actor?
Well, I have two suggestions for that.
Good, because my only suggestion is replacing the actor.
Yeah. Well, no, it is that, but I have two suggestions for an actor.
Oh, interesting. I have three. So.
I have what I'm going to call my serious suggestion and my off the wall suggestion.
Okay.
My serious suggestion is we've already got a sexy Ryan in the movie making a cameo. Why not have another sexy Ryan in the movie playing the lead? Ryan Gosling.
Oh yeah.
He's handsome, but he can also he's not afraid to be a goof, which I think works for Ladybug. He's actually got really good physical comedy skills, which I think would work with the more comedic style of fighting that Ladybug brings to the table here. He can definitely hang with the other guys, and importantly, could pass as Aaron Taylor Johnson's twin, because there is a plot point where Ladybug has to pass as his twin brother. So I'd say Ryan Gosling could have done this, and I think he would have been very good in this movie.
Sure.
Do you want to give one of your suggestions before I?
No, I want to hear both of yours. And then,
okay.
You'll see.
My silly suggestion. It's a bit off the wall, and it's because it's an older actor. So you'd have to change the plot point with him trying to pass as Tangerine's twin brother. Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
I think Michael Keaton might have been funny in this role. It would change Ladybug to being someone who's maybe like a little more beaten down and out. Not just someone who's had like an unlucky streak, but somebody who's been in the business for a long time and is like kind of on the outs with it. It would change the dynamic with him and Sandra Bullock, I think, in an interesting way. I think Michael Keaton could hang in this movie. Like, I think he could do it. Physically and just comedically, because he has a comedy background. He's got a bit of a career renaissance going on right now, so I think that he would be a big enough name to attach to the movie. It would change the character and it would change the dynamic in the movie a little bit, but I think Michael Keaton could have done it. And I would have watched the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling is still my serious suggestion.
Your serious pick? Sweet. Interesting. Yeah, I think Brad Pitt, yeah, like I said, is pretty distracting. I don't love him in this role, even though it seems like this was his kind of project. I feel bad. So I think you move Brad Pitt to either Sandra Bullock's role. Like if Brad Pitt still has to be involved, you give him Sandra Bullock's role and you cut Sandra Bullock, or if you don't want to cut one of the few women in this movie for a guy who has been outed as a domestic abuser, you have him in Michael Shannon's role as White Death.
Yeah, that would be an interesting switch.
It's a lateral move. It's more just like I feel bad kicking Brad off this movie entirely. Because he's on the poster, and I feel like part of the reason this movie got made was like it's a Brad Pitt movie. Come, you know him, he's familiar.
I'm gonna tweak your suggestion a little bit. If you are swapping Brad Pitt into Sandra Bullock's role, what about switching Sandra Bullock into Brad Pitt's role?
Yeah. Sorry, it's.
I don't know.
Sandra Bullock.
I had the same thought, Scott, and I think she would probably crush it. The other one, and just to pick a very popular choice, I'm sure Margot Robbie could destroy in that role as well.
So then, yeah. So my 3 picks: move Brad Pitt deeper down the bench or cut him. I don't really care. But this lead is such an opportunity to have this kind of bumbling, beleaguered pacifist who's also hyper violent. The suggestions I have are not just for like Brad Pitt separate the art from the artist reasons, and it's also not some sort of like liberal, like making things has to be true to the thing. But the fact that this is based on a Japanese novel and a bunch of the characters are now played by white people, I feel like is a missed opportunity to cast Japanese people. Like I feel like Brad Pitt's here because he's Brad Pitt and they needed a bankable name on the movie. But if we don't have that concern, then we can put an Asian actor in the lead. And I was really trying to find a Japanese American actor who's working today, who could crush this role, could use a leg up. Specifically Japanese actors, there's not a lot. In fact, the only one that kind of came up is already in this movie. So unfortunately, at least if I'd love to hear on Twitter or on our Discord, if anyone has suggestions of Japanese male actors age 30 to 50 who could go in this role, I would love to know more of them because I'm a little embarrassed. I don't have any to pull from, but also maybe there just aren't as many working as other Asian countries. So perhaps all of this to say, I have 3 other Asian guys I'd love to see in this role. I think this would be a lot of fun for Simu Liu. We're hot off Shang-Chi. This is exactly the kind of movie where he could flex his acting chops, flex his comedy chops. I think this would have been a real additional star-making turn, like a nice follow-up to Shang-Chi that would have really done his career a lot of good.
I will also posit, while the impetus to put a Japanese lead in the role, Ladybug is a foreigner, so you could just have someone from another Asian country playing him just as easily as an American.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, the author of this book was more than happy to have some Americanized characters.
Yeah, to have it a little more diversified. Yeah,
I'm okay with this. I just was like, if Brad Pitt's got to go, what a great chance to put in an Asian actor. They shouldn't have done that. They should have put it. It's not a stomp and demand thing. It's more of a just like an opportunity. So the other pitch I had, this is kind of my main one. This is actually who I would love to have seen. Would be Lee Jung-jae, the guy from Squid Game.
Oh yeah.
He's already kind of got this like in over, Squid Game. He's so bumbling and kind of in over his head and beleaguered. I think he could have done a good job with it. And again, great follow. He's popular from Squid Game, beloved internationally. This would be a really kick.
And has extensive acting chops for sure. Yeah.
And then the third guy I had, he's my third pick for sure. Also in the Eternals, just like Brian Tyree Henry, would be Ma Dong-seok. He's in Train to Busan. He's in Eternals. And I just like that guy. I liked him in Train to Busan a lot and then was excited to see him in Eternals. I just want to see him in more things. I don't know how he'd do with a role like this because he kind of usually plays more of a meathead. But I like him enough that I'd love to just see him get a shot. So those are my pitches for someone other than Brad Pitt. not for Brad Pitt's canceled reason and not for you got to have Asian people in Asian written things reasons. Just, I think they would have done a better job.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Because you really can't tinker with the interwovenness of all the plot details in this thing. Like, it really, they set out to do something and they nailed it.
Yeah.
And it's just that one thing of this really neat trick of weaving the plot.
This movie is such a well-woven tapestry that yanking on any one thread would cause the whole thing to unravel.
Yeah. And trying to like initially my thoughts were like, well, we got to give it an about. What's this movie about? What are the themes? What are the ideas? And the more I thought about it, it doesn't need them. It's okay.
Yeah.
It is okay being a plot heavy
popcorn flick,
doing dense into like the cool thing it's doing isn't commentating on the state of trains in modern society. Yeah. It's showing you this cool interwoven writing trick. Yeah.
I had a thought of this is probably more of a lateral move of instead of making Ladybug's central theme to be luck, I felt like the comedy would play better if it was more tapped into his reluctantly violent. Like if he was trying his level best not to hurt anyone, but it kind of kept happening anyway. Because like the seeds of that are all there already in the movie, where he just happens to run into the Mexican assassin and doesn't really have much choice. And like you can alter some of that fight choreography where he's trying to like end the fight in some sort of stalemate, but accidentally ends up killing it. And then there's obviously like the stuff with the poison where you can have sort of like the Zazie Beetz character get accidentally poisoned by him or something like that. All that. I think that would have made his attempts to be Zen make more sense, and because he's trying to be a better person, but it's just not working out no matter what he does. He's like, I don't know. Like, again, maybe that's a lateral move, but I think that's what I would have preferred.
Yeah, you're right. The seeds of it are there, along with the luck thing. And I think it's a stronger character trait. It's a funnier reason for things to go haywire.
Yeah.
Than trying to blame it on some sort of cosmic force. Other than the luck thing foils the prince, who she's always going on about how she has good luck. Everything's good luck for her.
Yeah. I think you almost have to sort of rewrite that a little bit. Like you say, like, because everything's so tightly interwoven that like it's pretty hard to make tweaks to it without unraveling a bunch of other shit. Yeah.
Also, as we were talking, if we were going to cast a white woman in Brad Pitt's role, Natasha Lyonne would be my pick. But that's my chance to comment that was moments ago. And I did it anyway. Any other fixes? Any other thing we think this movie? Any notes this movie needs?
Oh, I mean, we can check to see if the listeners got some.
Indeed, yeah. Other than I want to circle back, I wanted a rule of 3 on assassins showing up, getting their backstory, and dying. Rule of 3 for comedy, and a little more with the conductor or the guy checking tickets. Those are both, I feel like, missed opportunities for more jokes.
Yeah, it's possible that there was some of that. Maybe I think Greg is right. Maybe some of the conductor stuff hit the cutting room floor because the movie's already pretty long.
Yeah, 2-hour action flick is about my limit.
Yeah,
I prefer they be tight 90 minutes. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I think the reason why this one is so long, and again, the reason why a lot of people check out early on is because there's so much the movie needs to set up before it starts like really getting into it. And that's where that like long first 30 minutes comes in. And then it is a tight 90-minute action movie after that.
I can see if maybe the film's cadence and attitude is maybe rub people the wrong way too. Like, I don't know. Like, I can see
it's got a little.
I could see it bordering into being obnoxious. Yeah, it's like if that happened, like I guess that makes sense. But it didn't for me. I was on board.
Yeah, I think someone in our Discord compared it to Smokin' Aces or like a Lucky Number 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely feels like it's cut of that cloth.
Speaking of listener comments, we got lots of comments from you. Thank you to everyone who contributed. You can follow us on social media at I Have Some Notes on Twitter, Facebook. Please, I implore you, join our Discord so that we can talk to you about movies all the time. You don't have to be a patron.
It helps
the Discord, but it helps us specifically. Patron Robin says, Bullet Train is better than I thought it was going to be. The train is kind of incidental to the situation until the ending. It has a strong middle, but the ending is just a mess of escalation.
Yeah, the movie keeps ratcheting it up. Every time that it can make a choice that would make things more dangerous for the characters, especially for Ladybug, it always chooses to make things more dangerous for him.
Yeah.
Which is fun. It's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
I did like when he spun the combination on the briefcase and it just happened to open.
Because that was the most unlucky thing to happen in that moment.
Yeah. Interesting comment about the train being incidental, though. I watched a great YouTube video by a guy named Nando V Movies who talked about the use of trains in superhero and action movies. And I don't know that this is entirely incidental because you've got the close quarters, which is always a part of it. You've got the fact that they're sort of stuck and they've only got these 1 minute windows. I love the ticking clock of the doors at the station are only open for 1 minute. Lots of time. So I don't know that the train is necessarily incidental.
And there's the ticking clock because the train is going to a destination and the destination is not somewhere a lot of people want to go. So
yeah.
Because when it gets there, they need to have the money, they need to have the sun, and things keep going wrong, making it harder and harder for them to do the thing they need to do when they get to the destination. So,
Tack says, "Ugh, another movie from the bowels of my Netflix queue. Let's see if I could even be bothered to finish it. That movie was great. I'm so glad I finally watched it. Why are you jerks rewriting it?" Well,
because it got middling reviews and we thought it would be at our sweet spot.
Yeah. Also, we are not the movie jerks. That's a different podcast. There isn't much wrong. So Tack continues. There isn't much wrong. So all I can offer is a few optional tweaks. Tighten up the second half. The movie needs to be short and punchy. Would agree there, Tack. I think we commented on that a moment ago. Tack's second point, it would be nice if the movie remained a clockwork farce to the end instead of allowing the main characters to team up with a plan.
Well,
interesting.
It is a clockwork farce up until the reveal that there's somebody masterminding everything. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the surviving characters on the train realize that they're all about to face a big bad and they can do it together and maybe win, or they can all die separately. And they make the rational choice in that moment.
just because I'm just going to reveal that I may be a dum-dum here. What is clockwork farce referring to?
Oh, a farce is, a story where you have multiple intersecting story beats that are constantly butting up against one another. So it's the traditional people keep walking into the same room through different doors and catching each other in compromising positions because they don't know what's going on. And that happens a lot in this movie. The middle part of this movie is a farce with people walking in on something, not understanding what's going on. A fight breaks out. Someone's trying to explain this isn't what it looks like. A fight breaks out. It is a farce through the middle part of the movie, right up until the White Death shows up. And then it becomes like a team up against Thanos, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I can see where Tack is coming from, where he wants more of that middle part, where it's like people walking in the room at the wrong time and catching an assassin about to assassinate someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just hadn't heard the phrase clockwork farce before. But
yeah, and I think he refers to just okay.
Sorry,
I think he means clockwork in the sense that it's very precise. It's precisely put together.
Yeah,
gotcha.
You come in at that compromising moment at the precise time.
Gotcha.
Tack continues. 3, just pick one dramatic ending and one joke to go out on. Brevity is not a river in Egypt.
This movie has like 3 endings, but they're all okay.
And finally, have Pitt's therapy proselytization work on the girl at the very end. Just one time out of the blue. It inexplicably 100% works. And end the movie there.
I don't know. I think she deserved to get hit by a truck.
I didn't catch it on the first time, but reading Wikipedia, it was being driven by Lemon, apparently.
Yeah, it's in the post-credit scene.
That's the post-credit scene.
I didn't stick around for the post-credit scene.
No, in the post-credit scene, you find out he survived jumping off the train, flagged down a truck on the road, which turned out to be a tangerine truck. He thought it was very apropos, and then he catches them in the town as he's driving through and purposefully runs her over.
Oh, cool.
And basically is like, that's for tangerine.
I see. I almost like it better how I had read it, because her whole thing is like, she's like, I'm good luck. I'm good luck. I'm good luck. And then right at the end, she has that bad luck. Was how I interpreted that. But yeah,
her luck ran out.
Yeah, her luck ran out, and Ladybug's luck turned around. But that guy did it is also valid. I don't have strong feelings one way or another.
Yeah, in the book, I think Lemon also dies, actually. So,
Andrew Craig says, I really enjoyed Bullet Train personally. Not sure what I would really change.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a lot of fixes for this one. Again, it got middling reviews, and we were like, that's perfect for us. And then we all watched it, and we're like, oh no, why did this get middling reviews?
I want, like, we were talking about that kind of that attitude, that kind of very stylish, kind of manga-y attitude. And I wonder if a lot of just like the kind of movie going public who will go see a movie based on the actor in the lead role and not any kind of like respect for the auteur vision or because of the premise. It's more just like, I like when The Rock's in movies. I go see the movies with The Rock in them. If maybe this movie just got a lot of like, you know, Brad Pitt types who are just like here to see it, but he doesn't have that kind of draw. Is he one of those kind of Hollywood actors where people will just go to see him the way they might go see like a Jim Carrey movie or a Johnny Depp movie?
He definitely was at one time. And I will say this is a very different kind of movie than you would expect to see Brad Pitt show up in. And I think that might play into
That's where
it
I was
a little
going,
bit.
yeah.
People show up expecting it to be like a Brad Pitt action movie, and it's kind of not.
Yeah.
And I can see why that might be a little off-putting to some people, where they're like, this isn't the movie I expected. And sometimes having your expectations subverted is a lot of fun. I think we all went in with low expectations and we're all happily surprised. But if you went in with an expectation of the kind of Brad Pitt movie this was going to be, you might have walked out feeling a little burned by this one.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I think I can see why that might be the case for some people.
I think his appeal is more in his charm with whatever role that he's being given. Like he's played a lot of different characters. Like he's just as charming as a big weirdo in 12 Monkeys as he is as an imposing scary guy in what's that?
Inglourious Bastards.
Yes, exactly.
Aaron comments, you have to recast Brad Pitt to fix this movie. You can't have a guy who's in court disputing he beat the shit out of his wife in a movie where he's saying jokey lines about being in therapy for anger issues. It killed the entire movie for me. If you enjoyed it, totally fine. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I just couldn't separate the art from the artist with this one with that dialogue. So,
yeah, it's like Greg said off the top, because it walked up to the line of his real life issues in a weird way.
Yeah,
it kind of blurred it.
Yeah, and this is like the Cosby issue, whereas like his whole thing was being like America's dad, and like you can't reconcile like those two things, you know. Yeah. It's like in some cases it's pretty difficult to separate the art from the artist. So yeah.
Also, train derailments are a touchy subject these days, so I wonder if
yeah, that's fair.
Didn't help either.
Yeah.
This movie did not play well in Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah. I think for me, I was a lot like you, Liam, where like I knew that something was going on, but I didn't know the full details until after I had watched the movie. So I wonder how different it would have felt had I watched the movie knowing what I know now. So
yeah. So yeah, that's been Bullet Train. Thank you to everyone again who commented, our listeners, or just the folks who follow us, who support us on Patreon, who join us on the Discord. We appreciate your interaction with us. So once again, facebook.com/I have some notes. I have some notes on Twitter, or just find us and check out our link tree. And wherever it is you're listening to this podcast episode specifically, please give us a subscription, a rate, a review. We appreciate it.
And you can also, of course, head over to our Patreon. We've mentioned it multiple times this episode already, but just one last time, patreon.com/I have some notes. If you'd like to throw us a little financial support, we do really appreciate it. We especially appreciate our newest patrons, Robin, Sharon, Amanda, and Josh. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for your support.
Yeah. This movie had a lot of interlocking, interesting plot threads, but what about a movie that had a lot of interlocking universes? We're taking on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness in 2 weeks.
Also significantly features a train at one point.
Also true.
Oh no, that was Spider-Man. Never mind.
Never mind. Cut that out.
I'm sure in one of the universes there's a train.
Yeah. Until then, I've been your host, Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver. Keep watching the skies.
Choo-choo.